Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Wise Decision Maker Show, where we help you make the wisest and most profitable decisions. My name is Dr. Gleb Tsipursky. I'm the CEO of Disaster Avoidance Experts, the future of work consultancy that sponsors the Wise Decision Maker Show. And today with me is Adam Gefkovicz. He's the CEO of and co-founder of Untapped, and we'll get to Untapped a little bit later. But first, Adam, I want to ask you, tell me a little bit about the disconnect between Gen Z and corporate leaders around the topic of remote work and hybrid work. From extensive surveys, I know that there's Gen Z has kind of a nuanced perspective on hybrid work and remote work. So it seems that they are the least likely generation to want to go in the office for Monday through Friday, 9 to 5. But they're also not the generation that wants to do all remote work. Millennials want to do more remote work. And I see that both from my surveys inside companies when I'm helping them transition to hybrid and remote work, and also from external surveys. So tell me a little bit more about your expertise and what you've seen from your platform of helping folks get jobs.
Yeah. So I'll tell you what I read and I'll tell you what I see. And there's a little bit of a disconnect. So what I read is, a very nuanced take around Gen Z candidates wanting a balance, wanting to be in the office for collaboration, for onboarding, for team bonding, and then wanting to work from home for focus work, for flow time, etc. But what I see and what I actually hear, boots on the ground from many of our customers, is Gen Z, by and large, wants to be in the office. Now, keep in mind, for our companies that we work with, we really skew tech. So these are companies like Lyft, Airbnb, Gusto. And I've talked to a lot of university recruiters about this and why they think that they're seeing this. And it really comes down to backlash from having to work from home or having to learn from home during college and feeling like they missed out on certain components of that. And then the second thing that I find really interesting is, even though Gen Z are digital natives, they're the most, tech able generation to date, traditional communication methods just aren't working. And what I mean by that is, you might think that Slack is modern or email is modern, even text is modern. But it's simply not working for many university recruiters as a way to be in touch with candidates. And what candidates are actually preferring are really to go into the office. Now, keep in mind, my bias is a lot of these companies are Bay Area technology companies, and so they attract a certain subset. But I've been blown away by the amount of Gen Z candidates that are actually opting in to wanting to come into the office when given a choice.
Interesting. So let's double click on that and dig into why they're doing it. What do you think they missed out? Why do they want to come into the office?
So I think there's the glass half full and then there's the glass half negative. So the glass half full to me is collaboration, being in person, having a meal together, getting to know one another. Those are innately human experiences that we like to do in person. Be fun, joyous, connected, present. And I think that many folks, like, look, I have a little sister who's 17 years old, and she missed out on 2 years of high school, homecoming, prom. And so her desire is to be in person as much as possible. But I think that a lot of folks in this demographic, 18 through 24, Gen Z, do feel like there was some in-person experiences that they missed out on in college, and they want to make up for that through a communal experience at a tech company. For me, I did my big junior year internship at LinkedIn, and it was extremely in-person events every night, every Friday. We would get drinks, we would go to the park, we would have events, and that was a key component of it. And so I think that folks want that. But I would say the glass half negative, which I know you talk about a lot, is proximity bias. And especially for young folks who have worked very hard, go to these top universities, do the hardest degrees to get these big tech company jobs, think they're very worried that if they're not in person, they're going to fall behind. Especially folks from underrepresented backgrounds that want to take this opportunity to really move themselves up and secure generational wealth.
I think that's a really important point. And I do talk about proximity bias. What I see in companies is that many young people want to come to the office because they're looking for mentoring and they're looking for how to figure out how to get some mentoring and sponsorship. And when I work with companies, I help them figure out how to do effective mentoring in hybrid settings. So how do you pair up, for example, not overload any senior person, but give them things like group mentoring and so on. But that's neither here nor there. I want to ask you, what have you seen in terms of the desires for mentoring and sponsorship from young people, which may be driving them into the office?
Yeah. So this is, I think, one of the most key points that we'll make throughout this discussion. Gen Z candidates have grown up in a very uncertain world, from COVID to war to economic uncertainty to this digital revolution. There's certainly a feeling of instability broadly across the Gen Z demographic. And one of the ways that I think companies can really combat this, be there for candidates, be great employers, serve this next generation, is by providing extremely clear expectations of onboarding, first day on the job, training, 30, 60, 90, and that includes mentoring. However specific you were being in terms of onboarding and expectations with the previous generation, double that for this generation. And we actually ran a study with about 5,000 Gen Z candidates. What we found was really interesting. We found that 8 out of 10 candidates would prefer to join a talent community before applying to a job so they could learn a little bit more about the company. And even more interestingly, 7 out of 10 candidates would prefer to be interviewed by a member of a corresponding ERG before accepting an offer at a company. And I think that ERGs have played a big role, employee resource groups have played a big role in internal DEIB initiatives, internal inclusion efforts. I think they're going to start playing an even bigger role in recruiting because these are things that candidates want to see. And it's 82% of candidates will not join a company because it has a poor DEIB reputation. And in situations like this, mentorship becomes increasingly important. And I think ERGs can play a very powerful role in both creating that structure, creating clear expectations, and creating that sense of camaraderie and community.
And so let's dig a little bit deeper into the underrepresented candidates. What's the difference in how underrepresented candidates approach thinking about remote work and hybrid work versus more mainstream privileged candidates?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think that the trade-off is pretty night and day. And it depends on what types of candidates that we're talking about and certain backgrounds. But there have been many studies around microaggressions in the workplace, inability to be able to be the caretaker that you have to be, and remote work ultimately enabling you to live a life with less microaggressions and able to service the needs of your family and be the caretaker that you are. And I do think that the ability to go into an office and to really want to prioritize that communal experience is something that benefits more privileged candidates. And for that reason, I'm very, very grateful for what remote work has unlocked. I think about certain scenarios in our company and folks who have come to me and expressed that before, when they had to go into the office, they would feel incredibly judged or uncomfortable, so much so that it would distract them from their work. And now being able to work from home and create their own habitat and comfortable environment has really unlocked them to get into that flow state to produce. And that's the blessing and the curse of remote work. And that's the balance that we're all working to find to make sure that we can accommodate for different types of working styles. And I think this debate between remote work or non-remote work is so overly simplified. The truth is it's great for some reasons, it's not so good for other reasons. And the best teams will find balances and strategies to accommodate both types of workers so they can show up, do their best work, be fulfilled, and help you bring your mission to life.
It's definitely very important to realize it's not either or, not black or white. And we need to look at remote work as being beneficial in certain instances, less beneficial, which is why I recommend for most of my clients to adopt a hybrid modality with letting teams choose, because when you let teams choose, they can figure out, they have the most knowledge, they have the most expertise in what works best for team members. At the same time, they can coordinate with each other. So there's no situation of one team member coming to the office and no one else from their team being there. So having that dynamic is very helpful. But I want to get back to the underrepresented groups, because one of the things that I've seen happen that I try to help my clients address is where more mainstream white candidates come to the office and underrepresented candidates, employees don't come to the office as often. And then proximity bias and mentorship tends to get offered to the people who are already privileged. So one of the things we work on with companies is to make sure to create specific mentoring programs for underprivileged candidates, and also to support ERG groups in providing underrepresented junior staff, recent hires, Gen Z hires especially, with particular support. I'm curious what you've seen from your perspective on the particular support that should be offered, if you think so, for underprivileged candidates in the form of mentoring, recruits in the form of mentoring, and in the form of ERG group support.
Yeah. So I think a revolution is happening early in career. Early in career was previously just known as university recruiting. Let's go to Stanford, Berkeley, University of Alabama. Let's put up a career booth. Let's get some resumes. Let's hire. University recruiting is becoming early career recruiting, which is becoming emerging talent. And the definition is expanding broadly. And so what I see the best companies doing right now is they don't just have an intern program. They don't just have a new grad program for college graduates. They have apprenticeships. They have returnships. They have career switching internships. I was just talking to an incredible company today, in which one of the people on the call with me, he worked in customer support for 4 years, and then he actually did an internship at his existing company to get into HR. And this, in my opinion, is the new direction of early career talent and emerging talent. It's no longer just about universities. The world is changing so rapidly. The skills that people need to be successful are changing so rapidly. All of us moving forward are going to be early career talent in our own right, no longer just the 18 to 24-year-olds who don't have experience on the job. And so when it comes to mentoring underrepresented candidates, when it comes to creating environments for those who didn't have opportunity to thrive, I think launching an apprenticeship, launching a returnship, launching boot camps within your organization to help equip folks with the skills they need to switch horizontally is a wise decision right now. And that's what I'm seeing the best companies ultimately do. The cost of talent acquisition is going up. And one way to combat that is creating incredibly robust internal mobility processes and helping folks find their new stretch opportunity within the organization. And I think apprenticeships are a really great way to do that.
Excellent. Now, on the related topic, you talked about displacement and mobility, and ChatGPT is a really important topic of conversation right now, more broadly generative AI. So DALL-E and so on that are creating graphics. And you mentioned that, of course, Gen Z is the most tech-friendly, tech-native generation. As we're facing displacement due to generative AI, how do you think, or do you think that Gen Z might benefit in comparison to new workers who have new ideas and more native tech skills? Might it benefit from ChatGPT in a way that older workers would not? And can there be a competitive advantage for young people using this technology?
Yeah. As you and I talked about, and as you know, it's hypothesized that 40 to 45% of work is going to be displaced by AI over the next decades to come. And certainly we're going to see a huge shift in the economic landscape and the corporate landscape driven by AI. But I think we also agreed at the beginning of the call that some of the best work you can do in person is the collaborative work, is the creative work. And I believe that AI, ChatGPT, has a huge opportunity to automate some of the mundane work that we might do in isolation, such that when we do come together in person, we can really focus on some of the more creative and innovative ideas. And I think Gen Z is going to be powerfully equipped to use these tools in a way that truly streamlines innovation and the ability to really go from 0 to 1. Much like our phones feel like an extension of our body right now, or calculators, we all had the teacher in high school that was like, you're not always going to have your calculator in your pocket. Well, we do. I think AI and different prompts are going to be like that for the next generation, and only expand what humans are capable of. Because if there's anything history has taught us, it is that we don't have limits as a species, and as a group of people that can really innovate and push the limits. What we thought was possible 50 years ago is a fraction of what we've accomplished today.
That's a nice, hopeful message. I appreciate that. Now, tell me a little bit about, we've been talking about remote work. Tell me a little bit about how your own company functions, both what it does, so what it does, kind of what goals it pursues, the mission, the client service, and how it functions internally in terms of remote work, hybrid work.
Yeah. So, I grew up in Seattle. I grew up in this old motorhome, traveling around the Pacific Northwest, selling women's clothes. And that was my life, boutique to boutique, trade show to trade show. And I ended up being the first person in my family to go to college. And, thank you. And like many folks probably listening to this, you get to college and you see how connected everyone is. Everyone has, the uncle or aunt that can get them that great internship or some foot in the door. And I didn't have that. And so I just became completely enamored with this space of how to get access, how to get a great job. And I ended up interning a dozen places throughout college and figuring out the game of how to get internships. And I got this big internship at LinkedIn. But while I was at LinkedIn, I saw that there was so much more that a platform could do to serve early career talent and underrepresented talent. And so that's exactly what we built at Untapped, an all-in-one platform to help companies build diverse teams with a specialization on early and career talent. The journey has been, a journey, as a lot of high growth startups are. But over the last 5 years, we've raised $75 million from folks like Sequoia Capital, Owl Ventures, Lockheed Groom, and work with companies like JP Morgan, Lyft, Airbnb, Stripe, to really help them hire diverse teams. Lyft has actually made over 1,000 hires through Untapped, 82% of which identify as a member of a historically overlooked group. Our journey, remote to hybrid, has been a confusing one, as many companies have. We used to be very much in person, so much so that I would fly between San Francisco and LA nightly and take the buses so I could be in the office. And that ended abruptly when COVID happened and we became completely remote. And so now we are a remote first company, but there are a couple things that we do to keep the rhythmic cadence of in person and having that momentum. So we do one all company offsite a year where we bring everyone together. Nice. Usually that happens in April or May. And then we do 2 team get-togethers throughout the year as well. So the engineering, product, and design team gets together, the go-to-market team gets together. And more, we're finding organic ways to really meet up in person and collaborate in person. We don't have a critical mass of any employee base in a certain city. Everyone's scattered from Orlando to Chicago. I mean, we tripled our company size during COVID, so we scaled totally remotely. But I will tell you, more and more every day, I am getting requests for more in-person events, collaboration times, and conversations. And so we're remote first now. I would venture to say we're going to gradually grow to become more and more hybrid, as I think many companies who shifted to remote will do in this post-pandemic world.
Excellent. Yeah, I definitely have clients who had remote first and who are shifting to hybrid because there's a lot of benefits to having some in-person collaboration. Good. Are there any last words with which you want to leave our listeners?
I really appreciate the opportunity to be on the show today. I had a chance to read many of your pieces, and I think that there's a lot of work that we can do together with our clients. Ultimately, recruiting is more so than a talent acquisition strategy today. Recruiting is your employer brand. Recruiting is how your employees feel at your company. Recruiting is your onboarding process. Recruiting is your ERGs. Recruiting is the way people feel when they're working at your company. There's no better talent generation engine than an employer referral or a good employer brand. And so the way that we think about hybrid work, remote work, it's not just about existing employees, it's about future employees to come, and it's about the direction that you're taking your company. And so that's what we're trying to do at Untapped and pioneer and innovate. But we're all figuring out together as the world changes so rapidly. So anyway, thank you so much for having me on today, and I appreciate it.
Thank you for coming on. And thank you to the listeners for checking out another episode of the Wise Decision Maker Show. Please make sure to subscribe wherever you checked us out and leave a review. It really helps us improve the show and helps other folks discover the show. I look forward to seeing you in the next episode of the Wise Decision Maker Show. In the meantime, the wisest and most profitable decisions to you, my friends.